Kevin Weeks, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Marcus. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it myself. And first of all, happy birthday. I know that yesterday was your birthday. How did you celebrate?
Thank you. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, I can't believe I'm 48. It's so weird the way the years fly by, but we had a really nice celebration. My sister and my brother-in-law and our niece are down from Toronto. They're visiting us at our place in Miami. So my wife did a great job on our rooftop deck. She had everything all decorated and worked with a local company in Miami. We had our favorite pizza down there, Sir Pizza. For any of you that ever go to Miami, they're down in Key Biscayne, Sir Pizza. They're awesome. So we ended up getting that catered and had a great Nutella chocolate cake, which was amazing. I'm probably paying for it today, but my suit still fits, so that's a good sign. And yeah, we had some fun. My son, my niece, as mentioned, my sister and brother-in-law and wife. So we had an awesome time. We really did. It was great.
I'm glad to hear. And I saw some pictures and it looked really nice, the setup there on the rooftop.
Thank you. Thank you. Credit to them.
Yeah.
Credit to them.
So for those who might not know who you are a former NHL goalkeeper and also CEO of Speekes Media. You have 15 years of experience from media. You played 11 seasons in the NHL. So if we start with right now, you have the media career. So what are you up to nowadays?
A lot. So thank you for that. Thank you for the kind intro. I would say a lot. It really is for me a 24/7 business, and this being my 15th year in media and broadcasting and now multimedia. When I first started, I really wanted to learn the craft, improve, and try to shorten my learning curve. So I was on TV all the time. I would do radio, print, you name it, digital. Then social became a thing. And now in my 15th year, it still seems like it's gone by in a blur, but I'm busier than ever. So I'm on the air over 200 days in the NHL season, which is a lot of dates. You know, we have a lot of people that work a lot in our business. Certainly I'm on more than probably any of the other analysts, just in terms of volume for shows and for dates. So I'm currently the analyst for the NHL, an analyst for the NHL Network, also an analyst for ESPN, do stuff for TSN back home in Canada as well, which is an extension of ESPN, do stuff with DraftKings. They've been a partner this year. So it's been a lot. And the interesting thing about it, as of tomorrow night's game here in Nashville between the Predators hosting the Carolina Hurricanes, I'll do play-by-play tomorrow. So this year, that'll be my 8th different role that I've done. Wow. So that was, I think, the last one. It was 7. I think that'll be 8 tomorrow. So between all those different roles, from game analyst, studio analyst, in between the benches, reporter, on location, NHL insider, hosts shows, and now doing play-by-play. Yeah, that'll be the 8th different role this season. So it's a 24/7 business. It never stops. We're busy all the time. And then we're also doing some other different elements of our business that my wife and I are going to start growing now, that we'll do a little bit more of formally as well. So it's literally been a 24/7 business for me and really for our household, quite frankly.
Yeah, it sounds really exciting. And as you said, 8 different roles only this year. Is it difficult to go from an analyst to a play-by-play? Because you need to act obviously different in these 8 different roles that you have done.
Sure. I'll find that out tomorrow, because this will be the first one that I've done play-by-play. Oh. So this will literally be the first time. I've hosted before a couple times this year, but this will be the first time that I've done play-by-play. And I'm really excited to try it. But it will be different because ultimately I'll be paired with PK Subban and Ryan Callahan. So both of them will serve as the analysts for the game. I'm not sure if Callie is going to be up beside me in the booth and PK is going to be down low, or if it's going to be the other way around. But knowing those two guys as well as I have, it should make for a smoother transition in a new role tomorrow. I've known PK since he was 4. He used to come to my hockey camp back home in Toronto as a little Ninja Turtle, and then went on to an amazing NHL career, and now he's now spread out into broadcasting with us on ESPN. And Ryan Callahan, I've known, we played together since he came into the league with the Rangers as a rookie, and he went on to have an excellent NHL career as well. So having those familiar faces, I think, should make it a little bit easier in the transition in the new role tomorrow, but I'm really excited about it.
I'm happy to hear it. After your playing career, was it a natural step for you to go into media? Was that something that you had always wanted to do, or why did the choice fall on media?
So when I was playing, I always had, players, you'll have unique opportunities. So some of those unique opportunities were different charitable events. And then you meet people at charity events, team functions, league. I was fortunate enough as a young player to do a lot of things on behalf of the league, a lot of appearances. And some of those appearances, you end up speaking on camera, off camera. And then literally since I was in junior in the OHL at 17 or 16, when I came into junior, I was featured on the CBC back home in Canada on their show, The Fifth Estate. So I was a part of the show that they did. A lot of people could YouTube that now. But I came into my rookie training camp in the OHL and they had the cameras because they were doing this documentary on young players in Canada, either playing major junior, Canadian junior, CHL, or playing US college hockey. So I was a part of that feature. So I became very comfortable on camera, very comfortable in front of a microphone or on radio or at any multimedia platform. And it just kind of evolved, to be honest with you, Marcus, over time, it evolved. And essentially, I ended up having a reel by doing all of those things. And then some of the real unique opportunities, like The View. I went on The View. I went on One Life to Live on the soap opera and a few other ones. Everybody Hates Chris, the Chris Rock show. So literally, I'd had this whole reel without doing so as much intentionally, but just by way of those opportunities. And after was my 14th season pro and my 11th year in the NHL, that off season, we were back home in Toronto. We were back at home in Barbados, actually, because my parents are from Barbados. So we're back home in Barbados visiting. And as it turned out, I started getting phone calls from Hockey Night in Canada, from the NHL Network, from NBC and MSG New York. And they were expressing interest and asking if I was interested in becoming a broadcaster. And of course, going into that off season, I was like, my agent at the time told me, he's like, yeah, you're going to sign here. This team needs a veteran goalie. That team needs a veteran goalie. You're going to sign this. And as free agency started, it seemed like all of those spots that he was talking about, those windows seemed to be closing. And then the broadcasting windows seemed to be opening. And then there were windows opening to go and play over in the KHL in Russia. So I basically just started playing all of those things against each other and really tried to strategically plan what broadcasting could look like, potentially speaking. And I lined everything up that I was going to do the NHL Network, plus Hockey Night in Canada, and then plus a little MSG New York, and maybe a little NBC. And away I went. That upcoming hockey season, I literally just put my goalie gear to the side, hung up the pads, got in the suit, put on a mic, and away I went.
That's a great story. So obviously you're a media pro now, 15 years of experience. You have done this and all of the things that you mentioned. Did you go through any like official training, or was this, you are naturally good at this and then you learned as you went, or how did that process go?
It's kind of a combo of all the above, but my parents are very outgoing people. As mentioned, we're Caribbean. My parents are from Barbados, so they're very people-centric. We've always had people over at the house since I was younger. They're very social. They're very outgoing. My sister's the same way. And that I came by that naturally and my ability to articulate naturally. But I would say that in addition to that, having done all of those things before, what I mentioned to you, basically having those unique opportunities, those just started to build and then give me more confidence and more familiarity and more comfort on and off the camera. And then what was interesting was when I first started, for a lot of people, a lot of the listeners and the viewers, Hockey Night in Canada, the big night's usually Saturday night in the regular season. Saturday night on Hockey Night in Canada, it's the big thing, coast to coast. And you get so many viewers, anywhere from 1 million to 4 million viewers, depending on the matchup for the early games and the late game out west. And literally, when I first started, Marcus, I could have just done Hockey Night in Canada one day a week. And I said, no, I'll give you my schedule. So I did Hockey Night in Canada plus NHL Network and a little MSG New York, as I said, a little NBC. So what I was doing, to answer you, Monday night NHL Network, Tuesday night NHL Network, Wednesday night NHL Network, Thursday night NHL Network, Friday morning, go to Pearson Airport in Toronto, get on a plane, fly out west to do the West Coast game for hockey night, do the pregame show. And as you know, with the time change, when you're out west, come on the air at 3:30 local from Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, wherever the game was, do the first pregame hit, come back on, do the next pregame hit, race up to the broadcast booth in the elevator, get into the booth, put on my headset, do color, come down, post game, do the after hours show with Scott Oak. Sunday morning, fly back cross continent back to Toronto, and then Monday do it all over again. And initially I was watching some video with a gentleman named Shirley Najak. I really want to highlight him because he was the head of CBC Sports and oversaw Hockey Night in Canada, and Mark Jacobson on the NHL Network side when it was in Toronto at the time. So without both those two gentlemen, I wouldn't be here in this role, perhaps today, or in these roles. So I'm always eternally grateful to them. But I wanted to work as much as possible to shorten my learning curve so I could really improve, learn the craft, and do it in a short amount of time, as opposed to a 1 day a week type deal.
Of course. And of course, role models are important. You mentioned two there, but what I take from that is your work ethics, your discipline. Is that something that you have had most of your life, or is that something you got from playing hockey, or where is that coming from?
That's natural. It comes from my parents. My parents emigrated from Barbados to Canada, to Toronto. My mom went in 68. She went back home to Barbados in 73. Her and my dad got married, and then they came back. So being the son of immigrant parents, you know that nothing is handed to you. And you see that work ethic, both parents in the household that worked, and my aunts, my uncles, similar story. But I saw that example day to day. Those were living examples in the home. And when I went to start to play house league at Toronto Olympics, at St. Mike's Arena, the world famous St. Mike's Arena in Toronto, when I went to go register for house league at 6, when my parents brought me, I never, from the time I was 6 years old and I started playing hockey, didn't try in a practice, or didn't give 100% in a training session, or power skating, or goalie school, or anything. My parents never had to push me to work harder, to try harder, to care more. And as a young kid, I realized how expensive hockey was and the time commitment that my parents were making. And the good thing for me and for us is that they were learning. We were all learning as we went along. So they didn't know, and they weren't pushing this on me. This is something I really wanted to do since I was 6 years old. And in the first grade in school, when I was 6, Miss Mahar was my teacher, and I wrote a book, and I had an illustration. I'd drawn myself as a goalie with a scoreboard with the NHL shield with the NHL logo in it. And right from when I was 6, I knew I wanted to play in the NHL. That was my life goal. I wanted to make it as a goalie. So that same work ethic that I had as a young kid, as a teenager, as a professional, through all my years playing, I wanted to apply that same respect and work ethic for the craft in media. I didn't want to just come in and just act like I deserve the job. I have the job. Because remember, I'd had years of being a goalie. I didn't have years of being a formal broadcaster.
Yeah.
And I wanted to shorten that. So that's why I treat it with the respect that I do. And that's why I work as hard as I do.
Yeah, that's very inspiring. And you said that discipline came from your parents, but are there some skills that you have learned from hockey that you can now implement in your media career?
Totally. So, and I'm glad you asked that. Here's the thing for me. I really aspired to play in the NHL since I was young. Everything for me was the NHL, the NHL, the NHL, the NHL. And once I got to the league, I saw, I'm not going to get into some of the political things that aren't as good. We can as we go along. But I saw the attention to detail. The margins were so small, a fraction of an inch. My glove hair or my glove hair is the difference between a save or a goal. The fractions of time, milliseconds, all those things, and the level of professionalism, dressing room, everything, equipment, sticks, tape, not like, your sticks didn't show up. Your new pads didn't show up. None of that BS. No. Everything is razor's edge. And that's the way I'm wired in a lot of ways. So that was very natural to me. And I wanted to take a lot of that and a lot of those characteristics and apply it to broadcasting. So right from the beginning, I wanted to make sure my suits look a certain way, pocket square a certain way, haircut, all the different things. discipline, team player, especially as a goalie, even though you're an individual, you're still the most important piece of the whole puzzle, and it takes everybody around you on and off the ice to have success. So I really try to mirror that same approach in broadcasting. And then the other thing too is, this sounds funny, once you can be a goalie, you can do anything. So a lot of times if there's people around us that are off the camera, like, oh, we have to do this, and then the camera's gonna be over here, and then we're gonna do this, and then we got to make sure the audio, and then I'm like, hey, settle down, hey, relax. Sports are the toy department in the department store. Okay, that we're not saving lives, we're inspiring lives, we're entertaining lives. But let's keep this in perspective. And after being an NHL goalie with all that pressure, especially being a black goalie, to me, all of this is just gravy, and I really enjoy it, and not allow myself to think that, okay, tomorrow night we're going to be on the air. For example, it's my first time doing play-by-play. You know what? I played against Wayne Gretzky. I played against Merle Lemieux. Played against Peter Forsberg, Nicholas Lidstrom. If you could do that, to me, you could do anything. So those are some of the characteristics that I try to apply on the broadcasting side.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And yeah, you said that if you're a goalie, you can do anything. Sometimes you say goalies are weird. They're usually, the odd ones on the team, but maybe that's a strength. That's your unique edge.
It is a strength. It's a unique edge because, first of all, you're willing to put the accountability on your shoulders. You're willing to take on the weight of that responsibility and the opportunity of that responsibility. And you know that what you do doesn't only impact yourself, even though you're the only individual in the net. It impacts everybody that's playing in front of you, that plays with you. It impacts the staff, the whole organization, the fans, your family, your friends. There's no way to hide. There's nowhere to hide, and no way to hide, as I said, as a goalie. So I think there's a lot of uniqueness to our position, quite frankly, that's helped me in media, in business, in life on a 24/7 basis. It's such a unique perspective and a unique set of circumstances in the role. But I like to be able to apply a lot of those things because, listen, I can't walk down the street in a goalie mask and brand new Vaughn pads and Vaughn gloves and walk down the street. Now, maybe if we're playing road hockey, street hockey, it's a different thing. But, if I do that down here in Nashville, go down Broadway on my goalie equipment, people are going to be like, hey, what's up with this guy? So I can't bring the equipment, but I could bring a lot of the characteristics and apply them, which are really important for me.
Yeah. So you played in several NHL teams, one of which being New York Rangers. And as a Swede, Henrik Lundqvist was obviously playing there together with you. I heard an interview with him where he said that he basically ate the same thing for 20 years on match day. He ate spaghetti bolognese. Did you have any, specific routines before a game?
I had a lot of specific routines, and I love playing with my man, Hank, too, Hanky. We're great friends. I have so much respect for everything he was able to accomplish. I'm so proud of him and Therese and everything that they've been able to do. But in saying that, for me, I had a very specific game day routine. And as I got older, as a kid, it was pretty specific. When I got to CHL Major Junior, it was very specific. When I played pro in the minors, it was specific. But at the NHL level, I would always, for meals, it would vary. But on a game day, it would usually be a spaghetti bolognese or spaghetti meatball, spaghetti bolognese chicken breast. But the night before a game, usually I would have a steak. If I was starting, I would typically try to have a steak, a filet or a ribeye with whatever else I was eating. I was a big eater, so that I never had a problem that way, especially the night before the games. But one thing that I actually learned is I also learned that I had to start hydrating before the game, like the night before, the day before for me. So let's say if I was starting this game tomorrow, right now it's 1:30 Eastern, probably around 3:30 onward, I would be hydrating. So I'd start, increasing my water intake. I would start increasing my bananas. Then tomorrow would be the game day. In the morning, I would go through that, have oatmeal, have a banana, protein, go to the arena, come off the ice, rehydrate, bananas again, have a pregame meal, nap, and then go to the game. And when I would go to the game, I'd have more water, banana again, because I was prone to cramping. So if I didn't hydrate properly, and I had that when I was younger, I didn't understand. I didn't know better. I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
One night when I was playing for the Islanders. So those are some of my routines that I went through.
Interesting. And I think a goalie can lose like up to 20 pounds just in water weight or something during a game, or 15, something along those lines.
Yeah, it varies. Yeah, exactly. So depending on where we were playing, if we were playing in hotter places, and I played in Tampa and I played for the Florida Panthers too. So having played in Florida in some of those warmer buildings, of course, in warmer climates, I would lose anywhere from 8 to 10 pounds in a start in water weight. But that was something that I had to learn to manage, and I learned on the fly, because, you hear people, hydration. You're like, I'm young, whatever. And as I mentioned, I remember one night playing for the Islanders on Long Island, New York. I cramped up so bad I could feel it in the soles of my feet, my calves. Then I started feeling the hamstrings, and that was the second period. We were getting outshot already, like almost 40 to 10. And then in the intermission, they had me hooked up to all these IVs. So I was sitting there like Frankenstein. I had all these things on me. And then we came out for the third period, and we were on a penalty kill. So the opposing team was on a power play. I think they were on a 5-on-3. Shot, move. And I couldn't move anymore. It's just my body just shut down. I just went into full cramping. And they had to push me off the ice, literally, like push me like a shopping cart. And I had to go to the hospital in Long Island that night, get all the electrolytes, get all the testing. So that was a lesson learned for me on how and why hydration was so important, and how I had to learn how to do it, especially the day before games and the day before games where I was starting.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into how you started playing hockey in the first place, like, I feel like everyone has their best Henrik Lundqvist story. What's your best story from Hank?
You know what? I have so many Hanky stories, but I will tell you this one. I'll tell you a couple. So it was the year we didn't play the work stoppage, 03-04. And I didn't go over to Europe. Some guys went. I'm like, I don't know if I should go. Should I not? So I stayed at home in Toronto, and I was skating with my goalie coach, Sudzi Maharaj, who's now the goalie coach, longtime goalie coach for the Anaheim Ducks. But he's a Toronto guy too, and he was my personal guy in the off season. So we were skating together. I was working out, skating together. And I kept hearing from buddies of mine that were playing over in Sweden. And they're like, Weeksy, man, this Lundqvist, you got to see this guy. I'm like, really? And then Jose Theodore, who was a star from Montreal and was league MVP in 2002, Jay went over there to play in Sweden during the lockout. Henrik ended up beating him in the playoffs. Frölunda ended up beating them in the playoffs. And then guys are like, Weeksy, man, I'm telling you, this Lundqvist guy. So next thing you know, I re-signed, because I had signed that year with the Rangers, but then we had the lockout. So I signed another 2-year deal. And I remember we come to training camp. And remember, I hadn't played the year before, and I was coming off my career seasons in Carolina individually. So we come into training camp, and I'm like, I don't feel 100%. I missed the whole year. I just don't feel 100%. Starting to kind of get into it. And I'm watching this guy down at the other end. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's unbelievable. And I remember calling home, and I was talking to my parents, and I talked to my dad specifically, and I was like, Dad, I don't know, man, but this guy's the man. I don't really. And sure enough, I started the season. We got off to a good start. I got injured for a couple games with a groin injury. Henrik came in. The rest is history, man. The King came in. He rocked the stage. He owned the building, as I said during his jersey retirement speech at Madison Square Garden. He came in. He took the position by storm. He took the New York Rangers, our team, by storm. He took the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden, by storm. He took the league by storm. He took New York by storm, and he took the world by storm. It was a force of nature. So again, I was very, very, very privileged to play with him. Those are a couple stories. And then the one I would also tell that's probably going to be funnier is we had a shootout game that we ended up losing, and he was so good in breakaways and shootouts. But we lost one game. It was against Washington, and he was a rookie still. Already was one of the best in the league, but he was a rookie. This was his rookie year, and he comes in after the game, throws his mask in his stall, he throws his gloves. He's mad we lost in a shootout. He's like, "Come on, what the are we doing? We can't. And I'm like, Hanky, man, take it easy, bro. Hanky, chill. You're still a rookie, man. And we had Jaromir Jagr, the great Jaromir Jagr on our team. And Yogs didn't like going in shootout. And he went in the shootout and didn't score. He missed. And Hank's going crazy. And I'm like, Hank, don't worry about it, man. Even the great Dominic Hasek allows goals sometimes. Don't worry about it. Fast forward, Henrik ended up beating Dominic Hasek record as the winningest European-born NHL goalie. Mm-hmm. So that was a funny story that I had from him. But we had so many fun stories, so many good nights and dinners and nights out in the city. And yeah, the Henrik Lundqvist story is one that I hope gets told properly as a 30 for 30 with us on ESPN or an E60. I would certainly love to do it because I've earned his trust and we have our relationship, but it's certainly one that needs to be told. It's a great life lesson, sport lesson, business lesson that's all based on hard work.
For sure. So you started out playing hockey, if I am correct. You were introduced to the game by your older cousin.
Yeah, my older cousin Ian. So when his parents, which is my aunt and uncle. So my uncle is passed now. That was my mom's brother, but he left Barbados. He went to England. My aunt left Jamaica, went to England. Then they moved to Canada. Then they had my cousin. And then that's when my mom went there in 68. My cousin was born in 68. So they had me, my parents had me in 1975. And it's like 1980. And I'm 5 years old, literally like 5-6 years old, hanging around these guys. These guys are born in 68. My cousin, some of his friends are born in 66, 70. And again, I'm born in 75. So I'm watching these guys play street hockey behind our apartment, behind the building. So they're playing street. We have, friends from all different backgrounds, Caribbean, Italian, Greek, Russian, Swedish, Spanish, the whole thing. It's Toronto. And that part, especially in the 70s and early 80s, we had so many people that had migrated from other countries. So for us, we're like, hey, this is what they do in Canada. Hey, we watch hockey all the time. Let's start playing. And I'll never forget, we had one goalie. They would always rotate a goalie, but one guy who was always in, his name was Lambros, was his last name. And Lambros was always in the net, Greek guy. And for whatever reason, his parents left Toronto and moved back to Greece. I don't know if it was like serendipitous or what happened. And then my cousin, those guys, because I was just the ball chaser. I would just go and chase the street hockey ball or the tennis ball. And then they're like, hey, man, do you want to go in net? I'm like, yeah, okay. And that's kind of where it started. And that fall, we went to go and register to play house league at St. Mike's Arena for Toronto Olympics. And right from then, that was my life goal. 6 years old. Not kind of, not sort of, not, well, maybe one day. That was my life goal at 6 years old, to be an NHL goalie.
Is it true that you were playing with goal pads made from couch cushions in the beginning?
Yeah, of course. So in the 80s, and this was early 80s. So there's a big retailer in Canada called Canadian Tire. And it's kind of like a Lowe's or Home Depot here in the US. So, but Canadian Tire had everything from sports equipment to lawn care to auto part, the whole thing. So, you're young. We're young kids. We're young. I was 6, 7. We didn't have the money to just go to Canadian Tire and just go and buy street hockey pad, like goalie pads, to wear to play street hockey. So whenever people would throw out their couches in the building, in the apartment, that was like gold for us. That was gold because the sponges inside the cushions, we can unzip it, take the sponges out, and we could cut and make goalie pads for street hockey. So that's the way we used to roll back in the day, man. We had sponges. We put like skate lace or shoelaces to tie them up, like for the goalie straps. And that was the way we got after it, man. No excuses. That's the way we got after it for street hockey. And then funny enough, that winter, because when you start playing, the association kind of helps with some of the equipment. But that winter we went to Canadian Tire and my parents ended up buying my skates, and that's kind of how I got started. But yeah, couch cushions, the sponge from couch cushions was a big thing in the 80s, man. Big thing.
That's hilarious.
Oh yeah. Yep. That was a big thing.
Yeah. And on a serious note on that, I mean, talking about diversity in ice hockey, it is an expensive sport. It is
Sure.
specifically in the, starting, if you just want to try, if you need to buy all the gear and then you play for a couple of weeks and then you don't like it, it's not like playing soccer or basketball. You buy shoes and shorts and a shirt and you're good to go.
Totally.
So I know you're doing a lot of work on that to, or talking about it, try to, diversify the sport. So can you talk a little bit about your efforts on that?
Sure. A lot of my efforts have been both personal and collective. On the personal side, I really wanted to be the example myself.
Mhm.
So it's difficult when you're talking about things if you're not actually about that and you're not that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have that same level of authenticity. But because I had lived it, because my family had lived it, we had gone through it, we were going through it, I knew it like firsthand. I could close my eyes and feel the experience. It's that tangible for us. So I wanted to share those experiences. I didn't just want to say, hey, I made it and now I'm in the league and not really care about other people. I cared about other, in our family, we wanted to see other kids have the opportunity, other families to have the opportunity. So at the time, I started basically funding a hockey school that's still going today called Skills. And there are a lot of kids, first generation kids, not only kids of color, but first generation kids whose parents may have just immigrated or recently immigrated to Canada, or who were just trying to try the sport, who had never played before, or who had just started playing. There's so much to know. We were lucky because we didn't know and people told us as we went along and we ended up learning. But a lot of people, when you're starting from that zero, you don't know, how do I get skates? Where do I get them? Do I go to the arena? Do I go to the hockey shop? Which hockey shop do I go to? What size? How do we buy sticks? Does our daughter like it? Does her son like it? So all those different things were factors. And I was underwriting that. And from that camp, as I mentioned, PK Subban is a 4-year-old, a young 4-year-old PK Subban was at the camp. Devontae Smith-Pelly, Stanley Cup champ, Chris Stewart, Anthony Stewart, Wayne Simmons, Rafi Torres. I can go on and on for a lot of the young players that ended up playing in the NHL. And there's more importantly, who at least had a good positive experience with the game and have gone on to do other things in their own personal and professional lives. So that was really important. And then doing some of those efforts with the league as well. I think I'd mentioned earlier in the show, having those opportunities to do some of those things with the league. So not only to be visibly present and to be an example visibly, but in some of the league's efforts around diversity and trying to inclusion and trying to continue to grow the sport. So some of those were at hockey camps. Some of them were at some other league events. Ice hockey in Harlem, for example, is still going. It's super successful. And among others, in speaking to kids at games, hosting kids and families at games, hosting military families at games when I played in Carolina for the Carolina Hurricanes. There's so many different things across the board that I've had the opportunity to participate in. But it's been really important to me personally as well professionally because I've lived it myself. My family has lived it and we are living it as we speak. And ultimately, I'm a sportsman. I love all sports. Anybody that knows me knows that Michael Jordan is my North Star. He always has been. And I love other sports. I keep tabs. I played other sports growing up, but the NHL is my thing. And our sport is great enough to have many more people enjoy it. As a casual viewer, as a diehard viewer, as a young girl that's playing, as adult rec players that are playing beer league and adult rec league, for female Olympians, you name it. So I always was very focused on doing what I could to this day to help kind of expand our game and expand the people that love it and the people that like it and the people that play it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so important with role models such as yourself. And there are, of course, other, minorities. There women are a minority in hockey. We have now Pride Month in NHL right now. So there's a lot to do. But you have taken the first step. You Black player in the NHL, which was a minority. You were also the first to call an NHL game, a Black commentator. How important do you think that is for kids to have someone like yourself to look up to?
Thank you. It's always awkward when you're speaking about yourself, but I would say this. For me, it was everything for me to be able to, as a young goalie, see the great Grant Fuhr, to see Freddie Brathwaite, to see other Black players and Black goalies. It was really important, but not limited to, because that Mike Richter, Dominic Hasek, all these other Patrick Waugh, Ed Belfour. They're all part of, the guys I was looking up to. But it made it feel that much more possible when I saw people that looked like me, not limited to. I would then say on the broadcasting side, what's been really cool is I'm not hiding behind a mask and equipment anymore. Yeah. So what's really important is for people to see myself or other people or females or LGBTQ members or any visible minorities or anybody from a unique story. It's very important because it starts to make that more normal. It helps to normalize it. So it's not like, hey, we saw the black guy, he's talking on TV. Like, no, it's, hey, we saw Weeksy, he's breaking down the game. Yeah. Or, we saw Jamie Hirsch on the NHL Network, who's one of only 2 or 3 females in the history of the NHL to do play-by-play and call the game. Yeah. Right. As an example. So it's really important to normalize a lot of these things. And the reason being is ultimately we have a cross section. The world is a cross section, and we're made up of so many different backgrounds, genders, orientation, preferences, religious faith, and things of that nature. And something that's very important, Marcus, and I can't say this enough, anybody that walks into any arena, anywhere in the world, should feel comfortable with who they are. They should feel proud of who they are and what they are. Not what they're not, but what they are. So you come to any building, your parents are South Asian, East Indian, Pakistani, Swedish, Finnish, Jewish, Irish. You should feel when you walk into an arena or any sporting venue at any level, you should feel comfortable. You should feel proud that your last name is Forsberg or Erickson or Goldstein or Smith or whatever it is. You should feel proud of yourself, feel proud of your heritage. Your family members should feel comfortable when they're there. Anything less than that, excuse my language, is bullshit. Anything less than that, it should never happen. You should always feel comfortable because sporting venues, and as you know, sporting venues are often community centers. So a lot of the arenas that I played in Toronto, we have over 100 plus rinks, the most arenas in any city in the world. A lot of them will be called a community center or sportsplex. And those are gathering centers of the community. So it's really important for people to, in any level of sport, but especially at grassroots, to feel very comfortable. And to feel comfortable, you have to be welcome. And that's very important because I know the feeling when you're not. Yeah. And it's not a good feeling. And I don't wish that on anybody.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as you said, like now you're a role model for so many people, I'm sure of it. And they can look up to you and saw that, Weeksy did it, I can do it. When you were playing and started out in your career, you didn't have as many role models who had a similar journey as you have had right now. And having racist slurs thrown in your face, people telling you should play basketball instead of hockey. How did you overcome that, stay motivated, believe in your mission, and just not, ignore that or don't take that to heart?
Yeah, and thank you for asking. I would say this, what's really important about that is I'm very uniquely wired, and I had the unique ability to overcome that. And those are still scars though. Those are still scars. Those are still things that are hurtful, that are upsetting, that are confusing. And quite frankly, nobody should have to go through those things. For me, because I'm wired the way I am, I was able to persevere. Very fortunate to have, a loving family and a great family and a very supportive family, and some great friends that I'd known since I was young that were part of my support system. Also, I'm fortunate to have my agent, Paul Theophanis, who I had when I turned 22 or 23 in Tampa. And I've had him the majority of my playing career and then a lot of my broadcasting career right up until right now, because he's somebody that's an advocate. He's an advocator. He's been an advocate, both in his professional life and his other professional life and his military background, and then some other things that I'll respect and keep private. But at least he's always been an advocate and somebody that's pushing. Whereas sometimes when those things happen, you don't have the support, or you don't have people supporting you. Maybe they have the same beliefs as the people that said those things to you. So it's been very difficult that way. And I can tell you there's a big discrepancy between playing time, compensation, and your playing contracts. Certainly as a broadcaster, at times your compensation, at sometimes your opportunity. And I'm 48, I just turned 48 yesterday. You know, I could have had the same conversation with you when I was 17. So has it improved? Yeah. Are there people that have grown? Absolutely. Is there some more open-mindedness? Sure. But not enough to where you can relax and put our feet up on the desk as people. There's still a lot of growth. There's a lot of learning, I think, for a lot of people. And quite frankly, when you see, in my case, when I've had to overcome that, what's difficult is at times you're silenced. That's the hard thing. Because if you're to say what actually happened, and if you're to speak about it, a lot of the powers that be, or some of those powers that be, because of the authority, they don't want to hear what you have to say. And then you have to fear the backlash of that as well. So, you know, I've been very fortunate over the years to at least have earned the mutual respect of somebody like Commissioner Bettman and Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly, some of the owners around the league, the great Glenn Sather, who's still with the Rangers, and some of those folks that at least have been advocates of mine, as I've been advocates of theirs. But based on their experience, you know, and being legends and very powerful figures in the game, if I didn't have that, and if I didn't have my agent, I don't know what would happen, and my family, because it's just, at times it can be very, not only is it hurtful, but it could derail your purpose if you allow it to, you know? Yeah. And I think it's really important, as I said, it's really critical that I'm going to give you this example. I'll use Italy as an example. Not to say Italy's perfect by any means, although it's gorgeous and I love it. Anybody can enjoy Italian food. Yeah. And there's a pride. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Anybody can enjoy an Italian suit, and there's a pride. You don't have to be from Puglia or Amalfi to be able to have that. It's not exclusive. There's a pride in having people enjoy it. And that's what I think we need to continue to grow for our sport, is for it to continue growing. Be proud of as many different people of walks of life that are fans or that are players and that aspire to work in the game. Because the more it matters to more people, the more it matters and the better it is for everybody.
Definitely. I like that comparison. It's a good one.
Thank you.
And what you said there, 30 years ago, has it been better? Yes, but of course, still long way to go. I would agree with that. I wrote a paper like 2 years ago for a class, and if you see the African Americans and African Canadian players in NHL, it's, you know, way more now than it used to be, but still it's such a small percentage. So there is more to be done, obviously. But
Absolutely.
again,
for that.
Yeah, but again, you know, so important with pioneers, or, you know, someone who takes the first step as yourself. Also, recently we had the first Black GM in NHL, which I think that also you applied for that role. You were interviewed for that role, right?
So not specific to that club, but I've had some discussions with other clubs, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because in some of those, in the majority of those, they were already predetermined who they were hiring. So they weren't really that open. They were open for the interview, but they weren't really that open to the possibility of it being a reality, because they had already kind of predetermined who they were hiring, contrary to what some of them may say. So I was really happy for Greerzy, and I am very happy for Mike Greer that he's been able to hit that. It's a real unique situation for him. A lot of people don't know his brother is a GM of the Miami Dolphins as well, NFL team. So it's the first time in history that you have two brothers from the same family in two different leagues that are GMs, which is really cool, certainly between NFL and the NHL. And their father, Mr. Greer, had been an NFL executive for years. So it's a good first step, huge, historic, it's monumental. But ultimately, you know, here's something that I said. I gave you the example of Italy earlier. I was on a team in 2002 with the Carolina Hurricanes that went to the Stanley Cup final.
Yep.
We lost against that Detroit team that had 9 Hall of Famers, the Detroit Red. And one thing I will tell you is I've been to, this will be my 15th Stanley Cup this year, this June, that I've worked as a broadcaster, right from my rookie year as a broadcaster. Every year when they're spraying the champagne, they don't ask for anybody's passport. They don't ask what color your eyes are, where your parents are from, what language do you speak, what part of whatever are you from? Are you from Luxembourg? Are you from Switzerland? Are you from Gothenburg? Are you from Calgary? Once that champagne's popping, everybody's going crazy, and you're the only team on the planet out of 8 billion people. Your team is the one and only team that's enjoying the champagne. And I'm telling you, nobody cares at that point. So that's kind of what I get back to, why it's so important, because ultimately it's about the mission, and the mission is being the last team standing and the first team to hit that 16 wins in the playoffs for those 4 rounds. And when you really think about it that way, all that other stuff should never be impacting the way people see people for opportunities and roles. You should never limit those possibilities and opportunities for people. Because again, I've seen it 15 times. I was on the wrong side of it as a player, but 14 times a broadcaster, this will be 15 this June. And nobody cares, man. Once you're spraying that champagne, it's the ultimate feeling of collective success, and being the best in the world. And ultimately, that's what we're here for since we were kids playing in the street.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, that's every NHL player's dream, and you came so close in 2002. How much did that sting that you didn't get to lift the cup there?
I was thinking about that today. It stings a lot. It really does. It stings a lot because you never know when you're going to get that opportunity. And then I was on the 02 team, and then they went back in 06 against Edmonton and they won. So the Carolina Hurricanes did. And you never know. I remember guys saying then, boys, this might be it. You never know if you'll ever get back here. It almost makes me emotional because your whole life, everything you've lived for was that. Every practice, your parents driving you to practice, to tournaments, to games, every workout, off ice, dry land, protein shake, stretch, late night, ice bath, hot bath with Epsom salts, injuries, surgeries, the whole thing. It's all geared to that. And to be that close and we weren't able to close it out, it's hurtful. But I've been able to channel that. Number one, to be grateful that I made a Stanley Cup. I was on a team that made a Stanley Cup final. And number two, as a broadcaster, I've been, selected to work them every year for the last 14 straight years. So at this point, that's part of the win for me in a different way right now.
I understand. When you decided to hang up your skates, you said that you had you had 3 ways to go.
Yes.
How much did the not winning that Stanley Cup, or knowing that you will not win one, play in the decision to not, to go another route?
Good question. It was a factor. It was certainly a significant thought for me. It was a very significant thought, without question, because I'd always aspired to be a Stanley Cup champion. But what I realized is when I pivoted to start the broadcasting, if I was on a certain level, and if I earned the right to be on a certain level, then I would earn the right to be there every year, which I've been able to do. And that's been really important to me. And with that, I've also learned that that's my new Stanley Cup as such in a second career. But also the door's not open on that, because you never know what opportunities may present themselves in the future as far as club opportunities, if there's something that resonates, if there's something that's a fit. And then you may have the opportunity to do it again on a team side. But right now for me, I've become very comfortable with it being on the multimedia side.
Before moving on, I know you do some very interesting work with the real estate, but I need to ask you, you were wearing as a goalie number 80.
Yeah.
In one team, you had to wear number 1 due to the rule that you go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's
Yes.
the stage. And but you wanted to wear double zeros.
Yeah, that was my number growing up as a kid.
Why?
So there's a goalie, ended up playing for Dallas Stars a little bit, Mike Torchia, a good goalie. He played in Kitchener in the OHL. He played the Memorial Cup against Henrik Lundqvist and the Oshawa Generals, and Freddie Brathwaite was playing for Oshawa. They won that Mem Cup in 1990 for the CHL Championship, Canadian Junior. And Torture was from our same neighborhood back home in Toronto. We used to live downtown. So he wore 00. It was a cool looking number. He was older than me. He was a great goalie. It's like, that number is cool. So I wore that. I rocked that number the majority of my years as a kid. And then when I got to junior, when I got to the OHL, I wore it. In the minors, I wore it, both in the American League and the IHL. And then when I got to the NHL, they said, technically they can't because the computers and the number system, everything starts at 1. So my man, Martin Biron was the last one. Marty Biron was the last one to wear it. He got called up to Pittsburgh he got called up to Buffalo to play against Pittsburgh when he was still a junior. And they did not implement the number rule yet. So he got to wear 00. He was the last guy to wear it with the Buffalo Sabres. So him and I laugh and talk about that all the time. But I wish I got to wear it. I didn't feel comfortable wearing number 1. I just didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel comfortable wearing 40 or 35 or any of those numbers. I just never felt like myself in any of those numbers. And 80 was 2 things. Number 1, it was the closest looking number to 00, which is why I wore it. And also, I started playing hockey in 1980. Our first address was 580 Christie Street in Toronto, which had an 80 in it. So there was some personal significance there. But it was the closest looking number to 00, and I felt comfortable in that number.
So it had nothing to do with not letting 0 goals pass you?
No, because that would be impossible. As much as you think you could do that, but no, those are my digits, man. I felt so good in that, and just had some good times and good memories. And different things represent different things for different business professionals. And for some business professionals, they say, hey, I need to be in a blue suit, a navy suit, or a pinstripe suit, or I need to be in a black suit. Or for some of the female entrepreneurs that are out there, they'll say, I want my hair a certain way, and I need to have this blazer or whatever. We all have our own kind of things that make us comfortable in our arenas. And that was one for me, for sure.
I like that.
Thank you.
So everyone who has listened to this know that you have a lot on your plate. You were going through your schedules before. You work 24/7, Monday through Sunday, day and night, all year round. Still, you also pursue some other endeavors. You mentioned to me before that you are doing some work with real estate.
Yeah. So basically what happened was, when I first got to league, and a lot of people didn't know this, my parents, they had their house, everything was cool, and I helped them buy their dream house. So that's kind of how I got started in real estate. So they're in their house to this day. Everything's done. Everything's paid off. I paid everything off for my parents and for all that they did for me and my sister. So they live in their dream house in Toronto. It's been awesome. But that's how I got my start in real estate. And then from there, I ended up buying what was my own design for a family, but my own personal residence in an area in Toronto called Bayview. And I ended up buying that in 2002. Yeah, it would have been 2002 during the Olympic break. I ended up buying that and had that for years, and really just ended up selling that 3 years ago. But that was my first kind of personal step into real estate. And a good friend of mine and a realtor back home in Toronto named Patrick Wu, he always said, he goes, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. So that's how I kind of got started. And then from there, once the NHL network moved from being back in Toronto back down to New Jersey and Metro New York City, then we started to continue investing in real estate. So my wife and I, it's a part of our business portfolio is real estate. We're big believers in it. We believe in the markets. Number one, we believe in what it does because it provides housing, which is an essential need for anybody out there. Number one, especially on the rental side, not only on our personal side, but on the rental side. So that's number one. We're helping to help facilitate that. And then number two, you want to have, our renters in comfortable environments where they're taken care of, where they feel valued in our properties, where they feel safe. And again, they feel valued as customers because ultimately they're customers or clients. And then number three, it's really important for the markets that we're in. That is really important to us. So Metro New York, anywhere in Metro New York is big because that's our primary residence. Certainly it's the apple. It's the big apple. So it's the opportunity in metropolitan New York / New Jersey as to why we're there and why so many other people aspire to live there and try to live their version of the American dream. Another market for us is South Florida, Miami. That's another one where we're also anchored. We spend time there. Caribbean background. It's the closest you're going to get to the Caribbean, not only geographically, but by way of climate, vegetation, vibe, energy. So South Florida is another one of the markets that we're invested in as well. So real estate has been great. We love real estate. We're big believers in it. We certainly know that in certain ways it becomes generational for sure, in terms of the assets that they can be, especially for those of us that are in the ownership space. And quite frankly, too, Marcus, for us, ownership is something that was really important, because when you've been disempowered, nothing more empowering than being in a position of ownership, and not to satisfy ego, but ultimately to take away some of the barriers, as you and I were talking about, and some of those restrictions that can only limit you to get to a certain, or only allow you to get to a certain level. So there is the strength of that ownership for us that's really important, that allows us to have that control, as opposed to us being controlled by somebody else. So that's been really, really important as entrepreneurs for us as well.
Interesting to have not only the financial aspect of it, but also to have the fact that you represent housing, that you can help someone out, and also on the other side, what you mentioned, that you are on the power end of owning something.
For sure. Well, to your point, we just spoke to one of our renters down in Miami yesterday. Very successful family. He runs a very successful business in fueling of commercial aviation, military aviation, and fueling. And I have to keep his identity private, but we had a really good conversation with him yesterday. We had just went over to his place, our place, and spoke to him a little bit and introduced ourselves to him again. And it's so interesting because you start thinking, listening to him, he's talking about his company, his family company that he started, his son now being the new chairman of the company. He has 2 older sons, including that one. But then now he has another young child, and just listening to his story and what his story is. So his story, as for why he's renting that particular property of ours, is so interesting, as is everybody's story, because all of us have a story.
Yeah.
That's just what's so cool about it. Here's somebody that's as successful as he is, does as well. It's a family-owned company that he has, his family-owned business, and what they do as far as fueling and aviation is one part. Ours, as far as media, and my wife was a C-suite executive, global C-suite executive, chief global marketing officer for a big company that does over 25 billion euro. Her career, our career in multimedia, meshing with this one in petrol. It's just really interesting. Do you know what I mean? You would never, otherwise they wouldn't mesh necessarily. So real estate is also it's a unifier. It really is a unifier in a lot of ways. It connects a lot of people, and we're people, so very people-centric, if you will. So it's been a real nice natural extension. It's been a lot of work, because believe me, it's not as glamorous as everybody makes it out to be. You got to see a lot of open houses, go to showings, then tenant, whether it's the hot water heater and it's the winter, whether it's the heat, the boiler, something's off. The air conditioning, if it's down in Florida, one of our places there, there's so many different things. But so we're very much in the service and hospitality as well. That's a big part of what we try to bring to the table for our clients / renters. So it's been awesome.
That sounds so interesting. And everyone does have a story. And I have been privileged to listen to your story for an hour or so now. And I really appreciate you taking the time.
No problem. Thank you. Go ahead.
The last question that I ask everyone is, if you could choose the next guest on this podcast, who do you think that I should talk to?
Wow, there's so many, because I'm fascinated by so many people's stories, and I'm really motivated by so many people as well. I am a perpetual learner all the time. My wife and I, we're always learning, we're always talking, we're always studying. So with that being said, I would say this, and I'm not sure if some of your viewers are going to know this, but if they follow football bracket soccer, they're going to know. I'd love for you to get Fabrizio Romano on. I'd love for you to get the super newsbreaker, the super insider from soccer brackets football, the best in the game, probably the best insider in sports as far as information. Obviously, soccer football is unique because you have all the different leagues. Don't get me wrong. So it makes it very, there's a lot of information all the time because you have the different club level, you have the national team duties. So whether he's breaking something on Zlatan Ibrahimovic or it's Ronaldo going to El Nasser, whatever it is, he's always on it, and he's very interesting. He's outstanding. He's multi-platform as well, and he does a great job. So I would love to hear an interview with you and him. Not limited to, I could give you a whole list of names, but right now I'd probably say Fabrizio Romano. I think that'd be really cool.
That's a really cool name. And speaking about breaking news, you are doing that quite frequently on your Twitter for ice hockey.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something that I've been doing it over the years, and I would sprinkle it in because I'm so busy doing the other media roles, whether it's color commentary, studio analyst stuff, whatever else it is. But I never like to be satisfied with limiting potential. And uniquely, as an insider, I'm the only former athlete in any sport that's an actual insider. All the others are reporters. Some of them are analysts. Some of them are studio people, writers, and all of them do a great job in their own way, which is really cool. We all, as I said, everybody has a story. But a part of my story is the fact that I played in the league, and I played with and against a lot of these people, for a lot of these people. And I do have a lot of trusted relationships that I built. And one of the things with that is there's a lot of information that I get that I don't share, just out of respect for the relationships. And especially when people ask me to keep certain things private, and based on the nature of our dynamic, I'll always respect that. So put it this way, there's 99% of the things that I don't break. So the maybe 0.5% or the 1% of things that I do break, it's been a lot of fun. But that's a different animal because, as I said, you're chasing news all the time in that role, right? So I add that to the other 7 things, and I'm just you're chasing news, and sometimes things come organically just by way of conversations. But here's the best part about that is people were laughing when I first started because I do it with my cell phone, and people are like, Weeks, that's hilarious, blah blah blah. So I've had some fun with it. My wife and I, she kind of conceptualized that element. But I'll be very honest with you, Marcus. Here's what happened. Quite frankly, for some of the media partners that I've worked with and that I work with, I was going to them telling them I had breaking news. We'll see. We have so-and-so doing it. We can't get it on this segment. We can't get it on maybe tomorrow. News doesn't wait on anybody. When does news wait on anybody? News happens when news happens. Life happens when life happens. You get what I mean? There's some things we can control in life, but I got news for you. Yesterday, for example, we're having my birthday party. My sister, brother-in-law, and niece, analyst, they just come over to the house. I put on a fresh, brand new Nike t-shirt. It's black, blah, 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 clean, fresh. Our son Princeton pukes on the shirt. That's the first one. Life happens. Then I go change, put on some cologne, a little more deodorant, put on another t-shirt. We go up to our rooftop deck. We're there with them. We change him, put him in a fresh outfit. He pukes on the outfit. He pukes on the shirt again. So this is what I mean. Life is life, right? And things happen in a natural thing. And that's the news cycle. So news isn't waiting on me. This is certainly not waiting on you. And when it happens, you have to be ready. You have to be present. You have to be focused. We all strive to be as accurate as we can, even though it's other people. So there's a lot of variables. But that's kind of how it started with just, and that iteration of wanting to control it as best as I can without being limited to, hey, we can put you on the air. We're not going to put you on the air. We're going to allow for you to do this. We're not going to allow you to do this. And ultimately, quite frankly, I would say that in many ways, it's that's been so successful and has resonated with so many of our fans and our viewers and our listeners. To date, it's been over 20 something million impressions, like in the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 months. well over that. So it's been a lot. There's been a lot. The data supports that. And shout out to Amir and the folks at Zoomf, who do such an amazing job of data capture, if you will. I hope to be doing some more stuff with them, but they've been very, very helpful as we're trying to collect some more of that data ahead of my off-season free agency for me as a broadcaster this year.
Yeah, amazing. And you are a true inspiration to myself and everyone who listens. You are a great person, and I don't know how you make 24 hours happen, and that you gave one of these hours to me. I am eternally grateful. So Kevin Weeks, thank you so much for being on Sports Management Podcast.
No problem, man. Thank you so much. Continued success. I love what you're doing. Keep up the great work, Marcus. Thanks for having me. I look forward to joining you again in the not too distant future. We can break down some other stuff, but this was a lot of fun. Thank you. And thanks to all the listeners and the viewers that'll tune in, and shout out to all the NHL fans that are tuning in, especially those back in your home country of Svenska in Sweden.
Thank you.